Today, I'm going to be breaking down 3 specific reasons why, if you are the primary caregiver or the default caregiver, why you need to stop taking productivity advice from people who aren't. Now, I was inspired to do this recently when I was listening to a podcast from an expert that I truly admire. Now, this is not someone that calls themselves a productivity expert. They're more on the financial side. However, they give away a lot of time management and productivity advice on their show. And this entire episode was sharing things that are going to set you up for success. And I was like, oh, fantastic, because I usually glean a ton of insights. Now, I do happen to know that this individual, while they used to be a default parent, they're now an empty nester. And one of the first things that he shared that is the key to success is doing 3 things in the morning. First of all, 15 minutes of quiet to yourself, whether you're just quiet, whether you're reading, reflecting, journaling, meditating, whatever. And I'm like, yes, 100%. Plus, it's, a very doable thing. But then right after those 15 minutes, your next thing is to go into 90 minutes of deep focused work because your brain is at its best right then in the morning. Then after that, you need to go get your 10,000 steps in, like go for a walk and ideally get your 10,000 steps in. So when you add all that up, plus the time to like get out of bed, put shoes on, all of that, you're easily looking at 3 hours. 3 hours in the morning of just you, no interruptions, nothing. If you are the default parent, think about what time you'd need to get up to make that happen, right? During the school year, that would require me waking up at 3:45 in the morning. That is never going to happen. So let's break down the 3 reasons why, if you are in a primary caregiver or what some people call the default parent role, why you need to be really careful who you're taking productivity advice from, and you really want to avoid it from the productivity bros. The first reason, again, is they are all operating from a place where they have large, uninterrupted morning blocks. They assume that you can have 3 hours to yourself without waking up at 3:45 in the morning to do all of those morning rituals, right? Every single productivity bro that I know of has some version of like win the morning, win the day, right? They talk about these sacred morning routines that span at least 90 minutes, oftentimes up to 3 hours, right? And they're like, this is the secret to success. And for them, it might be, but they're teaching this as an assumption that this is available to everyone. And then they'll sometimes throw in it, you might just need to get up a little earlier. They're thinking, hey, this means you might need to wake up at 5. They're not realizing maybe your kid wakes up at 5. So now you're waking up at 2:30 or 3, right? And so this is not at all helpful. And it actually can be harmful to hear this over and over and over again because you think, God, what's wrong with me? I'm just being lazy, right? You're thinking, God, they must be waking up at 4 a.m. because they're not telling you, oh, I sleep until 5:30 and then I go do all of those things and then my day starts at 9, right? They're not showing you the actual clock for you to realize, oh, that's just not possible for me, right? And it's important to understand where this kind of comes from too. The traditional 40-hour work week, right? Thinking you're starting work at like 9 a.m. This was designed back in like the 1920s. And at that point, only 18% of women were working outside the home. And so this productivity advice that people are giving out there, that these bros are giving, they're operating from that standpoint that you have someone else running the home behind you. That's not our reality if you are like me and you are the default parent. So now let's move on here to reason number 2. They often assume that you can have a ton of control over your weekly rhythm. Again, especially during working hours, but they're also kind of assuming it during the entire day. Here's what I mean by controlling your weekly rhythm. A lot of the productivity systems or advice that I see coming from people that are not the default parent are teaching some version of establishing the perfect week. Now, what I mean by the perfect week is people will teach, hey, what you need to do is figure out every single week, like what days do you do meetings? What days do you not allow meetings? Maybe if you're running an online business, what days are you doing your recording, right? Okay, every Monday is podcast recording day, right? They're assuming that you can build this rinse and repeat structure to help maximize efficiencies and to help you reduce decision fatigue. But if you are the default parent, you know what controls your week and it's not you, right? The kid wakes up sick. What if Monday is the teacher work day and thinking you're going to record for 5 hours straight when you've got young ones at home is impossible. There are things that come in last minute from school, right? Oh, hey, I've got this project and now I need to go work on X, Y, and Z. Or maybe you're even in a caregiver role for your elderly parents and now there's a doctor's appointment that needs to happen. The fact is, you don't live a rigid life. You live a very fluid one. And so if you're trying to implement a system that does that, you're going to be setting yourself up for failure. I know this. I tried years ago when I launched the Pink Bee here over 5 years ago. I was getting advice from everyone. Oh, set your recording days because people were always encouraging, hey, one of the things you can do to grow your business is to pick one time that you're going to go live on social media every single week and people can be confident that they'll be able to see you there. Well, by week 3, it was a hot mess, right? Because I was like, oh, I got to do this. Well, guess what? That third week, my kid was homesick, really sick. And so I couldn't even step away for 30 minutes to go meet the live that I told everyone, oh, I'll be live every Wednesday at noon, right? So we need to have a system that does not assume that we have control and that we have perfect conditions. We need a system that expects curveballs, right? So those are the first 2 reasons. But here's the third one that a lot of people aren't really talking about. Our brain, if you are a female listening to this and you are the default parent, our brain is different. It just is. And there is science that shows that the female brain has stronger, what they call emotion, cognition, connectivity. All right, that's actually between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex in women, meaning there's more back and forth activity going between the emotional and the decision making regions. What does this mean to you? Is that when we are working on cognitive tasks, right, like sitting down in task going mode, we have less decoupling of those, meaning it's harder for us to shut that emotional center off during the day. All right. Meaning that emotion is still with us when we are sitting down to get into deep cognitive work. Whereas our male counterparts have a much easier time separating that. Not because they don't care, right? Of course they do. But because they don't have that same connectivity and the same amount of activity going between those 2 parts of their brain, right? So it's not, one's not better or worse, they're just different. And so when men can easily just say, oh, shut off all notifications and go to work, well, they're not recognizing that the female brain has a whole other component that's still running up there, right? Our amygdala is going, going, going. That emotional center is always present. And so this is why when someone who is the default parent or the primary caregiver tries to implement the productivity systems built by people who are not, especially if they're male and you are female, there's a complete disconnect. All right. So make sure you learn about the person you are taking productivity advice from, right? What does their lifestyle look like? What is the reality of their day to day? Because if it doesn't match yours, the advice that they're giving might be fantastic advice for them and for other people in a similar situation. But that if it's not your reality, the advice simply may not work, right? And this is something that it is so important for everyone to understand when they are looking for systems, tools, etc., to support them in their life. And this is exactly one of the main reasons why I built the TOP framework. TOP stands for Time Management, Organization, and Productivity. The TOP program that teaches it all is the #1 time management system for women. And I explicitly call that out because we are addressing those realities. The fact is, people that are not primary caregivers can use a far more simplified planning approach than what I teach in the TOP program because we need to be able to absorb curveballs, uncertainty, changes, the mental load, that emotional center, etc. So if you've been looking for a system and what I'm saying here today resonates with you, feel free to go check out more about the TOP program. You can just go to thetopprogram.com. I've got all the information there for you. You can hop in and join at any time. And if you want to start forward with me here and spend the rest of 2026 getting free time management tips, make sure you subscribe here on this channel. I'll see you back here again next week.